timeline. When you think how we sink your teeth in deep in how you're tired. So sad to meet you. Can't get you out of my head. Maybe a man in Machu Picchu is where I'll go instead. But you find me somehow, just like you anyways. Just like you anyways.
Hey, this is Justin from Broken Love, and you're watching LA Metal Media.
Hey everyone, this is Roc with LA Metal Media Magazine, and today I have a very special guest artist with me. He is a multi-talented musician, singer-songwriter. He is a shredding guitar player. He is one of the best vocalists in rock and roll out today, probably the best since Chris Cornell. And you are the brainchild and primary songwriter for the hard rock band Broken Love. Let me introduce to you, everybody, Justin Benlolo with Broken Love. Justin, how are you today?
Good. What an intro. Let me tell you. Thank you very much.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I mean, you've done an amazing amount of stuff in a short period of time, pretty much. And it's a blow mine. We're just great to have you on board.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm still coming back from that Chris Cornell comment. That means a lot to me.
All right, very cool. Well, hey, you've got your third LP coming out. It's going to drop on March 28th, Friday, a week from this Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And it's called The Program, and which, it's super cool, the record, and I can't wait for it to come out. Let's just imagine for a moment that there's some people out there that aren't familiar with Broken Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell? Yeah, right. Yeah, we're imagining that. So, because you got millions of hits everywhere from, so there's probably a couple people out there. So how would you describe Broken Love to those people?
We're like an alternative rock band. I think that, in a nutshell, when people ask me like what the genre is, it's very tough to kind of, dwindle down genre, especially when we're just like rock. But as you know, and we know, there's so many subgenres within the umbrella of what rock is. So I like to say, we're just kind of like a modern alternative rock band. We're kind of gritty, we're raw. We're not too precious about anything fun, but we still have some darkness, and we like to, get a little aggressive, but we like to balance it out with like kind of a little bit more digestibility. We're not anything extreme. I wouldn't call us like a metal band or anything super techy like proggy or anything like that. But I think we're like a mix of classic rock and kind of like 90s grunge mixed with a little bit of modern sort of like pop flair or something.
That nails it. That's how I would probably describe it as well. I just call you a kick-ass hard rock band, but
Yeah, which is cool. Like it's always tough, when you ask me like how would I describe the band, I go, I don't know. It's just kind of what comes out of me. So it's tough to kind of nail down exactly what we do.
Exactly. So, well, can you tell us how you got this band started?
Well, let's see. Let's go back a couple years now. So I believe we've been a band for like 6 years now, I want to say. It's kind of tough. Obviously, like COVID messed up the whole timeline. So I think it's been 6 years.
Okay.
And in a nutshell, I recorded our first record by myself. And it was before we had this band put together. So I'd done this record, before there was basically anything. And we kind of put the band together after the fact. And we basically found a bunch of guys in New York City. So our whole operation is in New York. My manager's there, my label's there, my agent's there, like everything is there. Even though I'm from Toronto, Canada, we had just kind of gotten lucky. We sent out a bunch of emails, we talked to a bunch of people, and we held some auditions like the old-fashioned way. And that's basically how we met these guys, and now we've been together for a couple of years. So it's been great, so far. So that's the short story.
No, I'm sure there's a big backstory to the whole trials and tribulations of getting everything going, but
Yeah, I mean, it's trial and errors, like you said. Like you have to definitely be very particular. We went through some things at the beginning. We had to let some guys go and bring some guys back, and there's obviously more behind the scenes that happens that I don't have total control of. That we have to listen to some people and take some advice. So through all that, we've essentially kept, me, Kyle, and Nick are kind of like the classic lineup that have, been in this band for a couple of years now.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I mean, so now here we are, basically, like you said, 6 years later, and you've got three LPs in the can, which, was pretty amazing in that time period. And you've got, millions of views and streams, worldwide. Um, and, you keep building on this success that you've had with the previous two records. What is it about the band do you think that people have made this connection with you guys?
I think you can't really like fake authenticity. And that's what we're kind of all about. Like, I don't think we're trying to cater to anybody or, do anything we don't want to do. And we've been really lucky also on just like the record label side that they just kind of let us do what we want.
That's
And
awesome.
that's very freeing. It's very unheard of these days. Most people have or are working with people that have a large hand or large say in what they're doing. And we've kind of been granted the opportunity to just kind of do whatever we want. And it turns out what we want to do is what everybody kind of likes. So, what you're hearing is exactly what we want to do. Nobody is pushing us to do that. And I think that comes through, especially in a world where everything is so manufactured these days, and you can't tell what's real or what's fake anymore. It's
No,
like
you no, you can't. You can't.
we also record things the old school way. It's like everything that you've heard is what the band sounds like. We don't fix a lot of things. We're not tuning the vocals. Where there's mistakes on the records, like there's things that make us sound more human, for lack of a better term. We're also, as a live band, we're kind of one of the only rock bands around that we don't play any tracks. We have no click. We have nothing. We just kind of get up there and go, and it really makes for it, especially that night. It's an authentic experience because you're never going to see that exact same show again. Whereas, not knocking any other bands that do it, by the way, but like, sometimes you see fans come back night after night, and maybe the other band has their shows all pre-programmed and stuff, and all the power to them. Again, I'm not denouncing any of that, but like you kind of see the same thing.
Right.
Whereas with us, we're kind of not locked into anything. I mean, we'll be 4 songs in and somebody will shout out a song and I'll just turn around and go, all right, you want to do it? And we'll do it. And it's kind of like we try to take a page out of like the Led Zeppelin, ideology, where it's like, man, I mean, how many versions of Whole Lot of Love are there? How many versions of Communication Breakdown are there? Like, I could tell you what version I like from what year at what venue, because that's what makes them so awesome. And not comparing us to Led Zeppelin. God, I would never do that. But I like that freedom that you're allotted, when you're not kind of tied down to any the parameters are set very wide with what we do. So I think that being said, it also makes for a very unique experience every single time you see us. I mean, maybe people that have seen us before can attest to that, just because they probably heard us play the same songs, dozens of times. But we definitely change them through the years. We develop sections live. We add a lot of jams. We add guitar solos. We call things on the spot. So yeah, I think it's just we're very authentic and real. And yeah, in a world where that is very tough to find these days, I'm hoping that comes through for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it does. And not making a comparison to LZ, but that is exactly the band that I would have said, you have that same vibe live, in that it's organic, it's at the moment, it's what's happening, it's what everybody's feeling on stage at the moment. It's not something that is just predetermined, and you have to for lack of a better term, figure out how to make it look like you're not going through the motions.
Right. I mean, we're all like improvisational players. Like that's how we all learn how to play. So a large part of our live show is improvisation. I mean, if you come and see us 3 nights in a row, every guitar solo I'm going to take night after night is not the same solo, or when the drummer is going to take his solo, because we do a lot of soloing, of course.
Okay.
It's different every single night. We're kind of just going for things all the time. And maybe again, that's taken more notes from the Zeppelin playbook, but also kind of from like our little jazzy side, where we kind of learn how to do that growing up. And there's just a spontaneity. There's an exciting factor to that. It's kind of teetering on the edge of things might go wrong, but they might go really well. And that's kind of fun. Let's see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, speaking of being on the road and playing live, as I mentioned, I believe you're, an incredible vocalist. How do you keep your vocals on track night after night with the rigors of being on the road? I mean, it can't be easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all. Well, I think when I was younger, I could get away with more, and I'm not that old, but like even the difference between my early 20s and now my late 20s, things have definitely gotten a little tougher. I definitely have to be more conscious of not talking so much during the day, because I am a yapper. I love to talk. I never shut up, and a lot of people can attest to that. And trying to get enough sleep, of course, that's important, but very hard on tour. And like, to be completely honest with you, it's like not trying to like, party too much or drink or do anything like that, which is like, I feel like when I was like 22 touring, I could do a lot more of that. And now I practically don't at all, unless we have a day off the next day. And of course, I've taken a lot of vocal lessons through the years. So I'm a trained singer, and I'm very rigorous with my warm-ups. And I cool down when I get off stage as well, which is just as important as warming up, to kind of set yourself back to like an equilibrium where you can talk again. Because it's for me, and I think for a lot of singers, it's not the show that's going to blow your voice out. It's everything else. I mean, you're only singing for like maybe an hour every single day, but you're talking for the rest of it. And after the show, maybe you got to go to merch and you got to talk over loud music, and you're shouting, at fans and that kind of stuff. So I have to be conscious of the way I'm speaking on tour. And I do a lot of like steaming. I have like a personal steamer, or I'll spend a lot of time in like the hotel shower in the morning, kind of warming up. I warm up my voice before I even start talking for the day when I'm on tour. And I try to stay away from like a lot of caffeine, or because it dries you out, or obviously I used to vape. I don't vape anymore. I had to stop doing that.
Hey.
But just little things like that. I think that all these little things kind of add up to a lot. And the big thing is really just trying to warm up, and being conscious of like your vocal state. I have little vocal checks that I could do in the morning to see like how much inflammation I'm dealing with. And then generally days off, I just totally shut up, basically.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's complete sound advice. I mean, that's like, I heard Steve Perry say things like that, and, with Journey, and, yeah, that's it. I mean, you're not going to run down to the local music store and, hey, you can buy a string, you can buy a drumstick, but if your voice goes, your voice goes.
That's the problem.
And there's something you don't have control over, environments, elements, but everything that you can control, I think you got to do what you can to keep your voice on track.
100%. It's like the best way to not, ruin your voice is to never lose it in the first place. And it's like you said, it's like once it starts going, you're kind of playing catch up the whole tour. Like I had an unlucky experience last year where I got sick right off the top of a tour. So while we were driving out to Western Canada from Toronto, it takes about 4 or 5 days to get there. I just basically didn't talk in the van. And then I was pretty good for the first 2 or 3 shows, but then the inflammation started like catching up to me. And then for about 3 weeks, I was just basically fighting off this like, cold or sinus infection or whatever it was. And I was disappointed with the result of the tour vocal wise. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't as bad as people, or as I thought it was, but
Right.
to my standards, it was just really annoying because you can't predict sickness. These things happen, and it's obviously more detrimental for a singer than it is for a guitar player or something like that. So that was annoying, and you can't do too much about it. But of course, like you have to make it work, and you have to just work within those circumstances as best as you can. So, you know, you got to roll with the punches. And if your voice is really, really ruined and really, really shot, I would never risk, trying to sing a show. I think that it's actually, I commend artists if they can cancel a show or postpone something, because like you said, you only get one voice. And if you ruin it, all it takes is one bad night where you push a little too hard, and you can get a hemorrhage. I mean, you can completely ruin your voice for years if you push a little too hard. So it's very important to be aware of how fragile it is, and how precious your voice is, because even if you do everything right, especially in rock, your voice is going to change. I mean, how many guys can still sing those crazy high notes when they're 50, that they did when they were like 20? It's kind of rare. um there's obviously, anomalies like Chris Cornell, or you know guys like Steven Tyler. Like these guys never really lost it. But sometimes, you get lucky. Sometimes people's voices are just made different. Some people really take care of themselves. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but you just got to focus on the things you can control. And even at home, I'm very regimented with my vocal care as much as I can.
That's it. That's sound advice. Yeah, because if you relax when you're at home, then trying to, it's like taking off from the gym for 6 months, and then yeah, then all of a sudden
It's a muscle. So you have to keep working it, but you have to work it the right way. You
right.
can strain it, you can pull your muscles, like you can certainly go too far. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, now for the program, I understand, or at least what I've heard, is that the writing process was totally different for this record than it was for the previous two records. Can you tell us about how it was different?
Yeah, so for this record, it was interesting because I kind of didn't know that I was writing this record until like I was like halfway done, and it kind of became like a destination thing. Like I went down to Charleston, South Carolina, for what ended up being like a few months, but was only supposed to be a week or two. One of my best friends lives out there, and we had some time off after the last touring cycle and the album cycle, and I brought all my gear just because I was like, well, I might as well bring my stuff just in case inspiration strikes. And it became a very big source of inspiration. I mean, I never written a record outside of basically this room, you know? So just being there and meeting a bunch of new people, and being in a new environment was just very inspiring, all in all. And we made a bunch of friends, and and new friends. It wasn't like people that I grew up with, of course. So there was always like unbiased opinions I was getting, and I kept writing songs about our circumstances and things we were doing, and then I would have little listening parties, and these people would come over and listen to these songs and kind of give me their honest advice. And I realized at a certain point I was like, oh damn, I guess this is the next record, you know. And again, even the environment, because it's beautiful over there. I live in Toronto. It is beautiful sometimes, but most of the year it's pretty cold. It's pretty grim. A lot of that environment also inspired sort of the nature of the music, because we were listening to a lot of like R&B and like funk music, and a lot of like dance music. It wasn't like my typical kind of like swampy, bluesy, grungy rock that I like, you
Right.
know? And I think a lot of that came through, and I kind of kept riding that wave of like R&B and disco and funk, and just trying to keep pressing on this thing. So it was definitely cool to step out of my element, and be able to do something in a place I'd never been before. And I didn't leave because of that. Like I said, I was only supposed to be there for a week, and it turned into like 9 or 10 weeks or something like that. It was something ridiculous, that I just ended up staying there because it just kept coming to me, and it was great. I mean, I really enjoyed all of it.
Yeah, no, that's totally awesome. You get thrown into or not thrown into, but you actually, embark in a different environment that's inspirational, and it's like, hey, floodgates are opening. I gotta tap into this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Awesome. So also on the record, the program, you worked with your producer from Little Black Box, Anton DeLost,
Yeah.
right? And you also did a collaboration with, I think it's Mike Schumann, bassist from Queens of the Stone Age, to come up with the opening track 2020 Vision. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about that experience working with those two musical collaborators?
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, Anton and I are frequent collaborators at this point. So with him, it's very easy because we know what we both like. You know, we're very aligned in that sense. There's no kind of worry of like how are things going to sound or what's he going to do, or you know, we're just very locked in that regard. And getting to work with a guy like Michael Schumann, that was just awesome because I'm like one of the biggest Queens fans in the world.
Right?
And basically, you know, my publisher hooked it up, and she knows him, and he said he was open to doing writing sessions. So we went over to his house, and you know, it's really interesting when you're writing with somebody you're a big fan of, because like, and Anton as well, because he's also a big Queens fan, and we're sitting there and try not to get giddy, you know,
Right,
because
right.
we're in his little studio, and then there's like plaques for all the Queens records on the wall, and we're like this is, you know, like every time he turns his back, we're like, you know. And of course, when he started playing the bass and playing all these riffs, we were like, that's it. That's the sound. Like that's Queens, you know? And of course, when we ended up cutting the song and putting it out, a lot of our fans were like, oh, it sounds like a little bit of Queens of the Stone Age. It's like, yeah, well, I can't take complete credit for that main guitar riff, because Michael kind of came up with like at least half of it, you know. He just sat down and started jamming this riff, and then me and Anton grabbed two guitars and we all just kind of jammed on that riff for like a couple minutes, and we put the whole thing together in like 10 minutes, you know.
Damn.
We came up with basically all the music together, and then I ended up taking the track back here when I got home, and then I wrote all the lyrics and, you know, pieced together the melodies and stuff. But as far as like the music went, it was, and maybe he's gonna see this, but like when we were in the room, we were like, me and Anton were like, oh, this, we're gonna do like this thing, you know, the Queens always do like a piano thing on every single chorus, to do like a very like pad kind of like staccato piano, but we were trying to not lean too into the Queen stuff to make it, you know, we didn't want to rip them off or anything like that,
Right.
but make him think that that's what we're doing. We kept calling the song, we were like, oh, it's like Evil Danzig, which is kind of like a weird statement because Danzig is evil, you know. But really, you know, we were trying to get some of that sound. I mean, it's like, again, they're one of my favorite bands ever, and not a lot of people can nail that Queens thing, you know. And here we are sitting with a guy that's in Queens of the Stone Age, and it just kind of crazy how that flows out of him, you know, and like you
Right.
understand why it works the way it does, because this is just what these guys sound like. So that was really, really cool. And I remember him saying too, he's like, oh man, you came to me to write a rock single. He goes, I'm not a rock single guy. I can't write a big rock song. Lo and behold, it's the first single we put out.
Right, right. No, I mean, it's a great opening track. It's, you know, it just gets up, gets you going, gets you into the record immediately. And I think it's super cool. It was a great choice for, you know, starting the record off. So
Thank
yeah,
you very
I love the collaboration. So, and one of my favorite songs off the record is Cruel.
much.
You know, yeah, I mean, you got a lot of great songs on there, but this song has kind of like these super cool anthem rock guitar riffs. And then you go into the chorus and it's just like these really blistering, scorching vocals that, you know, happen in the chorus. And so I hear this and I'm thinking, damn, you know, is it easy or is it hard to write a song, any song that actually is a super cool song, but also showcases your vocal abilities?
Um, that one is a tough one to sing. I'm not gonna lie. That is a tough song to sing. And I'm glad you like that song, because that's got to be maybe my favorite on the record. It's cool to hear you say that, because I think that's one of like the biggest departures at this point for us musically. I think it because it mixes some of that kind of like R&B kind of pop thing on the verse, but then the chorus is just like your big rock, you
Anthem
know,
thing, yeah.
chorus, which we'd never really done something like that before. I think I'd always try to stray away from like making like too big of a chorus or too quote unquote like rock of a chorus. I don't really know how to put it, but I think when we had this sort of like almost in sync Backstreet Boys, Justin Timberlake kind of like verse, juxtaposing it with like that big rock chorus, I think creates kind of a very interesting dynamic in my opinion. And I don't think it's hard to write a song that shows off the vocals that much. I think I used to do that more on my first record when I was a little younger and like a little bit more ambitious with that. Now, obviously, that I've toured, because I never toured before my first record, I'm trying to be conscious of what's actually possible, when I do it every single night. So on this record, I think that's probably vocally the most challenging song of the whole record. And we kind of needed something like that to fill in the gap, because we dropped a lot of the keys on this record. We kind of just kept tuning lower, because I was trying to be conscious of like, how am I going to do this in 10 years? Like, I need to be careful, because there's songs from my first record I don't want to touch anymore, because I'm like, damn, like this is just getting crazy. But what I like about that song too is I get to show some of my more like R&B chops. I'm doing more runs and vocal riffs and that kind of stuff, which I never really get to do on the record. But if anybody's seen us live, I do that stuff like left and right,
Right.
So it kind of became a moment to be like, okay, let's put some of this on record. And I used to shy away from that stuff because that means I have to commit to it. It means I actually have to do it every single night, because people might miss it if I don't do it. Whereas, again, if people have seen us live, they probably know that I embellish a lot on the songs that we do, and I'll sing way higher notes than I should or add things that I shouldn't, But I feel like a song like that kind of really showcases a lot of my capabilities, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to try, and I'm a little nervous, but we'll see what happens.
Right. No, exactly. Is there anything you'd like to say to your fans before we go?
Damn. Well, I would like to say thank you. First of all, thank you for supporting the band and sticking with us this long. I know it's been a while, since we put out music, so I appreciate everybody still hanging around and being there with us. And also, keep rocking, stay true to yourself, don't doubt yourself. Everything's going to be okay. I swear. Take it from me. Listen to the music. It gets better. The stories all encapsulate, my life as things have gone on. And I feel like a lot of what maybe resonates with the listeners of this band is kind of, for me, I think the lyrics are really, 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 really important. And I feel like if people are paying attention to the lyrics, I like to treat myself as sort of this guinea pig of like, look, I can do it, so I think you can do it too. And yeah, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. That's my little words of wisdom. And believe in yourself. Keep believing in yourself.
Well, there you go. Sound advice. Anybody up and coming musician, you want to get into it, just, hey, stick to your guns, be you. And, you can't go wrong. If you're not you, then, it's probably not going to work. So, hey, there we have it. All right. Justin Benlolo, Broken Love. The program's going to drop in about 2 weeks, March 28th, Friday. I can't wait for the record to come out. Everybody get out there, get the damn record. And I just can't wait to see some of these songs live. It's going to be, a total blast. So, Justin, thanks so much for being on board. I know you got a busy day, and I can't wait to see you guys out on the road.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Okay,
Thanks.
we'll see you again. Thanks.
Bye.